Morty, you need to just close that door because we're going to start comedy. All right, I will say good evening, a good night, almost a good night of Shabbos.
Should we close this door? It's a noise from construction.
No. It hurts. It just hurts. It just hurts. No. It's not a shite. Thank you. I'll say, again for the, this is like Mamish Sudash Shlom HaMelech. Quite beautiful and quite amazing. Ashkoach to Reb Steve for really organizing all of the mashka for tonight. Shkoyach. And again, if you would like to sponsor any of the future nights, please see Reb Steve, and he will be happy to make that happen. So we're continuing on tonight. We know we spent the last 2 weeks. We spent the last 2 weeks focusing on the Chalban, on Shavuos. And we saw the Rebbe really spoke to us in such a profound way regarding the notion of Achdus and the need for Achdus, and it's only Kabbalah Satorah with Achdus. So we're coming back now to Akitzu V'Raninu. And in this particular sefer, again, remember, we're talking about the Chalban is describing over here the process of Geula. And what Geula looks like, and what Geula means. I was thinking about this as we're getting now back into this Limud Emir Hashem over the next, I think the next time before Halavai Tisha B'Av will be a Yom Tiv, Emir Hashem. So before we get into Tisha B'Av, as the Yom Tiv, we'll do some of the Chalban's pieces on Zecher L'Churban, and then Emir Hashem will get into Yomim Noraim. It's hard to believe, it's almost Elul. It's almost Elul, right around the corner. So we'll get to the Chalban and some.
You want that?
I'm sorry.
You want that?
It's almost Elul. I wanted to say something. So I'll tell you, we made Abdallah on Matzah Yom Tiv, and my daughter said to Tati, the next Yom Tiv is Rosh Hashanah. The next Yom Tov is Rosh Hashanah. I said to her, Shefel, I'm Makabel the Musar. I'm going to start doing Shuvah. I'm Makabel the Musar. So we're going to get, but we have a couple of weeks still to get back now into Akitzu V'Raninu and to really delve into once again this limud. So just to reorient ourselves a little bit, because it's been 2 weeks since we've done the Sefer. But the last piece that the Chalban was really focusing on was the notion of Pekida and Zechira. So remember again, two different parts of the Geula. So remember again, Pekida, which again, Pekida literally means what? Literally means what? Remembrance, right? Remembering. So Pekida is the first step in Geula, where dramatic events happen. But according to the Chalban, what happens? Those dramatic events are kind of like shrouded in Teva. They take place in the natural order of the world. It's not supernatural events, or I should say, it's supernatural events, but supernatural events embedded in the natural framework of the world and of the human condition. So there are events that occur, and when they first occur, everyone sees the Yad Hashem, the incredible hand of God in these events. But remember again, then what happens? After the period of Pekida, then ultimately, So then after Pekida, he's like Hillel by the skylight. You know what I'm saying? He just wants a little. All right, boys, we'll come back. Good, I know you come back, but they're going to daven Ma'ariv after the shir if you want. Also, good. Leave after mincha. Not after Kedusha. They have to stay for Mitzvah Sashans. It's true. So remember again. So then remember again. There's Pekida, and the period of Pekida. Ultimately, again, we have the Yad Hashem, but the Yad Hashem cloaked in Teva. And then remember again in our last year. If you remember in our last year, the Chalban describes something amazing happens. After this incredible hisorus, this incredible spiritual awakening with Pekida, then what happens? The world almost pulls away from Hashem. So it's a fascinating thing. The world pulls away. And then ultimately, again, Geula really reaches its apex or its zenith with Zechira. And in the period of Zechira, that's when ultimately, again, there is a reawakening again. People remember HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because as the Chalban said, no matter how much the Jew veers, he never veers too far away. So Rabbi says, so now this week we're going to focus on this next section, page Ayin Beis. Page Ayin Beis. This is a beautiful, beautiful piece here. So the Chalban writes, title of the section is Hayachas Bein Haguf v'Haneshama Be'uma v'Chiburam. Literally, the relationship between the body and the soul in the neshama of Klal Yisrael and their connection. So listen to this. Writes the Chalban. Ha'uvda she'ezkirehi nekudas hakodesh ha'omedes b'yisod kol shlavei ha'geula. Hein shlav ha'pekida, b'sod tikun ha'guf, ve'ein shlav gilei ha'zechira, b'sod hofa'as ha'neshama b'das. So remember again, the Chalban also pointed out that pekida is really something that lifts up the body versus zechira, which is the process that ultimately lifts up and purifies the neshama. But he says this process, so both say, we were describing up until now this Pekida, Zechira, Pekida, divine revelation, but embedded in Teva, the natural order. Zechira, divine revelation in the supernatural. The Chalban also adds in over here that the real impact that Pekida has is it awakens the body, versus Zechira really awakens the neshama. The Chalban says, let's use this as an opportunity. Melamedes yisod chashuv ma'od bedavar hayachas bin haguf v'haneshama. The Chalban says this notion of Pekida, awakening the body, Zechira, awakening the neshama, teaches us a very important lesson in the relationship between the body and the soul. And I both say this is one of these pieces that is just, well, you'll see right now, just so profound. Look what he writes. HaKodesh ha'elyon michulal u'mehave'es hakol. What he calls Kodesh ha'elyon, the essence of Kedusha, the highest level of Kedusha, encompasses everything. Right? We're going to see that there are different levels of Kedusha in this world. But the highest level, the highest order of Kedusha, it encompasses everything. There's nothing that's outside of it. Lo rakis haneshama, elagam es haguf. In this highest level of Kedusha, it's not just the soul that's holy, but it's the body. It's the guf that's holy as well. Memela misbarer shahamashmaos ha'amitis shal chaye haguf eino ela levush hamevate umegalim es hakodesh b'merchavi hachomer. So look what he writes over here, and this is really, really very beautiful. He says, let's just look at the words. The real essence of physical life, Eino ela levush, is a garment. Hamevate umegalim es hakodesh b'merchavi hachomer. They will say, what's the essence of the body? What's the job of the guf? The job of the guf is to somehow help reveal the kedusha that's in the world of the material. We'll see what this means in just a moment. Zohi madrega ha'amitis hari'elam yisrael. So we're going to see, let me get a little ahead of myself and then we'll dial it back a little bit. What the Chalban is going to say is, we often live lives where there are two parallel tracks, right? What are the two parallel tracks in life? If you had to group everything into one of two tracks, what would it be?
What I want to do, what I'm doing.
Right, what I want to do and what I'm doing. Absolutely. By the way, right? That's the truth is Bar Shekivanta. Right? We're gonna quote the Ramchal in just a little bit. Not that Ramchal, but I often say that the Ramchal says, it's one of my favorite pieces. The Ramchal says in the introduction in Parak Aleph, in Mesilas Yesharim, he says that a person has to ask themselves one fundamental question each and every day: Ma chovaso ba'olamo? What is my obligation in this world? And it often struck me that the Chalban doesn't say a person should ask themselves, what do I want to do? Right? You see, we often think, like, from the time that we're kids, right? Our parents ask us, what do you want to do when you grow up? The Chalban says, it's the wrong question. It's the wrong question. A Yid doesn't ask, what do I want to do when I grow up? A Yid asks, what does Hashem need me to do? And when she's saying, good. See, Rosé, sometimes the hardest thing in life is the things I want to do are not the things that I need to do, right? Or the things that I need to do are not really the things that I have an interest all that much in doing. So much of successful living is just bending your knee before HaKadosh Baruch Hu and saying, Baruch Shalom, I'm in this world not to do what I want. I'm in this world to do what you need me to do. The Chalban will also suggest is another thing. Two parallel tracks in life, Kodesh and Chol. Kodesh and Chol, right? We say it. Hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol. How do we begin the week? Chassidus Baruch Hu, you are the one who's mavdil ben kodesh l'chol. Boss, remember again. Why do we recite Havdalah in Atachonin la'adam das? Why? Because what's Havdalah? Havdalah is the ability to be mavdil, the ability to distinguish between that which is kodesh, sanctified, and that which is chol, and that's mundane. We put Havdalah, we put Havdalah in atachonin la'adam das, because sometimes the greatest use of one's das is the ability to be mavchin, to distinguish what's kodesh, what's chol. The Chalban says that the highest level that we could reach as people, although we're going to see it's not really a level you reach as an individual. I began to see that one of the Chalban's major themes is one of Achdus. Right? So one of the levels that we could reach as an Am, as a collective, is this ability to see everything in the world of Kedusha. That when you delve a little bit deeper, you get to this higher level, there's no such thing as Kodesh and Chol. All there is what? There's Kodesh. There's Kodesh. And that's what he writes. Zohi madrega ha'amitis hari'uli am Yisrael. She madregas Kodesh Elyon. Now we'll say, we're learning something new tonight. There's this thing called the madrega of Kodesh Elyon. The level of the highest Kedusha. What is that? Bo kol merchave ha'chayim ha'churmiyim mahavim bechinas guf ulevush el haneshama ha'adira or ashchina. In that level of Kodesh Elyon, everything is holy. Everything is connected to the neshama. There's no bifurcation, right? There's no tzvei dinin, right? There's no two parallel tracks. There's no mavdil ben kodesh l'chol. Everything is kodesh. Look what he writes. Rabbi said, this is beautiful. B'move on zeh. So when you try to understand this, he says, "Hacholom al metzius mitukenas ukidusha inenu rak bekach shenitan makom b'chaya am labate knesses v'yeshivas." So I say, listen to this. The Chalban says, okay. So you ask a person. So tell me, in your view, right? If you were to close your eyes and imagine a world where there was all kedusha, what would that world look like? Right? What would that world look like? So the Chalban says, often what do people say? A shul on every block, a yeshiva on every corner, right? Shuls, yeshiva, all these beautiful things right here. The Chalban says, no. That's not what it means. He says, Kedusha is not simply that there's a space, ultimately again, for yeshivas and shuls. Because we'll say, when people think about that, you know what, if you want to expand it a little bit, you know what Kedusha is? Kedusha is that there's the office building, right? And in the office building in the basement, what do you have? You have a base medrash. So that when you're not learning or when you're not working, you're learning, right? And there's a shtibel, there's a shul in there, and then you can daven and kind of bringing everything together. Says the Chalban, that's beautiful. But that's not what we call Kodesh Elyon. Kein ratzon lo der b'kfifa achos. Torah va'avoda chayechol utfila b'shchinus zelazeh. See, Rabbi say, this is so incredible, because the Chalban says we often think that like the highest level of existence is coexistence. I have Kodesh and Chol literally living side by side. They're neighbors. And they coexist so beautifully, right? Kodesh doesn't infringe on Chol, and Chol doesn't infringe on Kodesh. What are the best neighbors? Best neighbors a person could have are the ones that don't bother you, right? Mamish, incredible. He's not your neighbor.
Today he is, right now.
No, I'm here. I'm here in the middle.
You're
in between. So ultimately, again, good. What is it? Tall fences make good neighbors, right? So what's the idea? Is you do your thing, I do my thing. We're good friends. We're next to each other. Everything is fantastic. So the Chalban says when we think about Kedusha, we think about this idea that there's going to be Chol, there's going to be Kodesh. They coexist. They're neighbors, Shchinos. They're neighbors, one to the other. And again, this one doesn't share this one. This one doesn't share this one. HaKodesh v'achol einam shchenim. Listen to these words. His Hebrew, the way, as they say, they say in modern Hebrew, the phrase is gibush ra'ayonot, the articulation of ideas. The way he articulates the ideas are so beautiful. He says, HaKodesh v'achol einam shchenim. See, Rabbi say, Kodesh and Chol aren't neighbors. Rabbi say, by the way, what's the interesting thing about neighbors? Right? What's the interesting thing about neighbors? Let's say, I'll give you the following scenario. You have two friends, Reuven and Shimon, who live next door to each other. They love each other. Great neighbors. And we'll say, now what happens? Reuven wants to put up a fence. Right? No matter how much Shimon likes him, what is Shimon going to tell Reuven? Two words. No one ever put up a fence. Right? Boundary survey. Right? I love you, but where is your land and where is my land? Right? Because that's what happens. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to demarcate, this is your property, this is my, I love you. It's a schus to live next to you. But at the end of the day, I want to know where your property ends and mine begins, or mine begins and your ends, whatever it is, so we can be the best of friends. But neighbors always have that line of demarcation, right? This is mine, this is yours. Now again, often it doesn't come up. I'm using the fence because fence is a good example. When the property is open, okay, nobody minds, you walk here, you walk there. But the moment you're going to do something to kind of show that which is yours, so then I'd like to know exactly where mine ends and yours begins. He says, HaKodesh v'Achol einam shchenim. Kodesh and Chol, they're not neighbors. Because I will say, how do you make sure you have you have continued good relations with your neighbors? You put the little stakes in the ground, right? So you know, I know what's yours, you know what's mine. It's fantastic. We love each other. We can hug across the boundary. But Lamaisa, I know what's mine and you know what's yours. Kodesh and Chol are not neighbors like that, where you need a clear and defined demarcation. Listen to these words. HaKodesh hu haneshama shel hachol. I don't even know what it means yet, right? But it's incredible. HaKodesh hu haneshama shel hachol. The Kodesh itself is the neshama, not just for Kodesh, but the Kodesh is the neshama for Chol as well. Ki ara elokus hu yisod hakol. For it is the light of Hashem that is at the foundation of everything. Erech kol ha'arachim, v'shoresh kol ha'shorashim, ve'ein od milvado. Or essentially what the Chalban is saying is something so profound, is there are no neighbors. Because there is no Kodesh and Chol. We'll say, what is there? There's Kodesh. There's Kodesh. Now we'll say, I want to be clear. The Chalban, he's not telling for us there's not Kodesh and Chol. Right? In our world, in our current circumstances, there absolutely is. I knew you guys couldn't stay away. I know it. Right? In our world, there's absolutely Kodesh and Chol. In our world, there's absolutely things that are holy and things that are profane.
Does he define?
Yeah. We're going to get into all of this. Remember,
what makes all the difference.
100%. What he's just understand what he's describing over here is the period of Zechira. Right? What happens in this period of Zechira? What happens in this second stage of Galus? So Rabbosai, for the last thousands of years, and maybe even since the beginning of time. In other words, I think that the state that Rabbosai, a lot of times when we think about Geula, we think about like a restoration to what was. But that's not totally true. In other words, there's a restoration, we'll have a Beis HaMikdash again. But the Messianic era ushers in realities that the world has never yet seen. There's panim chadoshos ba'olakan. There's something new that's unfolding over here. So what's amazing really to highlight is this idea that what he's describing is a period of Zechira, this last stage of Geula. And what happens in the last stage of Geula? The boundaries between Kodesh and Chol come down. Why? Because in the period of Zechira, I recognize that there is no Kodesh and Chol, there's only Kodesh. It's all only Kodesh. Everything is Kodesh. Page Ein Gimel.
He's saying that the Kodesh lives within the Chol HaNeshama. Any Chol can be elevated.
Correct.
To Kodesh.
And by the way,
it's not elevated. It's Hamav de Chol. It's one of the same. Kodesh Baruch Hu created a distinction between them.
Correct.
They are the same.
But they are the same. But
it's Hamav de Chol.
The perfect example is going to be the paradigmatic example of Kodesh and Chol. Is what Rabbi saying. The paradigmatic example.
Shabbos and
Shabbos. You know what we're going to say?
I was going to say it's precious when like someone goes to the on a mountain for like half of his life and then goes down and does whatever he wants.
Very true. Beautiful, Rabbi. You said Shabbos.
Shabbos and Chol.
Shabbos and Chol. Truth is simpler. The greatest example of Kodesh and Chol is the Guf and the Neshama, right? It's here every day. It's here every day, right? And think about it for just a moment, right? So I say the Guf is Chol, right? The guf is chol, the neshama is kodesh, and we spend our whole lives just trying to rein in the guf that it shouldn't go off the rails. The Chalban says, but think about this. What powers the guf? What powers the guf? What powers the guf? The neshama. The neshama is a nitzutz Hashem. It's a spark of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Spark of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is kulo kadosh. So how can you call the guf chol when the guf itself is powered by that which is kulo kadosh? It doesn't make sense. So the Chalban says, we'll say, okay, it doesn't make sense, but it's my life. Right? It's my everyday life. My neshama wants one thing, my body wants a different thing. More often than not, my body wins. Sometimes my neshama wins. And even when the neshama wins, it's usually not a complete win. So I will say, that's in this period of time. But in the period of Zechira, the notion that both Kodesh and Chol, in the same way that both Guf and Neshama come from Hashem, it will that realization allows Kedusha to overtake everything. Take a look at page Ayin Gimel. He says, V'tzarech lahavin, Shamira zu, lo ba klal la'ayim al erchei hachol ulazalzel lahem. So both this is very important. The Chalban says, both saying, I think one of the things that is so enjoyable about learning the Chalban is that as much as like this is Torah's Hanistar, hidden Torah, and esoteric, the way the Chalban talks and the way he articulates his ideas are so down to earth. Look at this concept. He says, understand, we're not trying to demean or to diminish chol. See, I both say, sometimes you think about it, people say chol like it's a bad word, right? There's kodesh and there's chol. But it can't be that chol is a bad word, right? Why can't it be that chol is a bad word? Why not? There's 6 days of it, right? I'm saying like most, right? 6/7 of life is chol and 1 day is Shabbos, right? They make it so obviously. So the Chalban says, "I'm
also no kodesh without chol."
Correct. The contrast.
Yeah,
although that's we're going to see, by the way, that obviously, according to what the Chalban is saying, is that's another distinction in the Messianic era. There will be kodesh without chol, or in other words, or chol itself becomes kodesh. So the distinction is not as acutely felt.
I mean, okay.
We're going to see. We're going to see. We're going to see.
How do you have Uvdu the Chol on Shabbos?
Oh, so we're going to good. We're going to let's see.
The lack of kodesh inherently, that is bad. The lack of kodesh is a bad thing. So that would mean that chol is bad.
The lack of kodesh could be a lot of different things, right? In other words, I'll give you an example. The Maharal brings down. He says the word chet. This is the word chet. We often translate chet as sin. So Maharal says that's actually not the etymology of it. He says the etymology of the word chet actually means a void or an absence. He says because when a person commits an avera, much worse than the sin, which maybe brings an onesh or something else, is the fact that I've created a void, a vacuum, right? A space that should have been filled by kedusha is now just empty.
But that's inherently the absence of kedusha. Why is that not bad?
I don't know if the word is bad. I would say the absence of kedusha, right, usually is actually defined as tumah. Tumah isn't necessarily bad, right? Tumah is a state of being. In other words, I could go ahead and sit here. I can go ahead and sit here and just sit here for a whole day and do nothing. Do nothing. No mitzvos aseh, nothing. Am I bad?
You didn't job it, if you didn't daven Shabbos, then yes. And if you didn't daven, there are days.
I didn't fulfill mitzvos aseh. Didn't fulfill mitzvos aseh. Failure to perform mitzvos aseh, does that make me bad? I don't know. Maybe the answer is yes. I would think more that there's a void. I've created this huge. So the shaila is what the void gets filled with. That's so. And we're going to see. We're going to touch on this as well. So we'll say. So the Chalban says, I'm not coming to tell you that chol is bad. Ela adarabah, the romim osam u'l'shavos lam erech nitzchi ve'alyon. Just the opposite. See, I will say, the easy way out in life is to say that chol is bad. I to say that, right? That's the easy way to say that chol is bad. I will say, why is it easy to say that chol is bad? Because in general, it is easy just to shut things off in life. It's always easy to shut things off. I have this conversation with my children all the time because, sometimes, like conversations about technology or about different aspects of modern day life come up. and it's easy to say something's bad. It's easy to say something's bad. It's easy, of course, because if you say it's bad, you know what? The great part is you don't have to deal with it. You're supposed to say, no one really struggles with chazer, right? Why don't they struggle with chazer? Why not? Why not? Right? There's no gray in it. It's not like it's only a little chazer. It was a baby chazer. It was never fully actualized into an adult chazer. I know a lot of adult chazers, right?
You rose above the Yitzhar. There's always the Yitzhar, but if you
it's not. The difference is it's black and white.
So gradient.
I'm sorry.
No gradient.
There's no gradient. In other words, that like you're either in or you're out. So remember, we all strive for black and white in life. Black and white is great because if something is black and white, again, it doesn't mean I'm always perfect with it, but there's no ambiguity.
For Baal Tshuva, it's hard to stop eating chazer because you're so used to eating it.
Oh, okay, 100%. I'm talking about a person who's brought up from. I'm talking about a person who lived life a certain way. So again, it's not the pshat that I don't have a taiva for chazer because I never ate it. Let's say that person lapsed and they ate chazer. The difference is that it's unequivocally usher. There's no gray in that. So things that are not gray, the struggle is less. We'll say this. There's a lot of examples of this. Masha'in kain, where there's gray, so there you have one of two choices. You could just say bad usher, shut the door on it, and that's the easy way out. Or you can embrace the struggle of it. So the Chalban says the easiest thing would be to say chol is bad. Chalban says, I'm making life a little bit harder. I'm saying chol is inherently good. Chol is inherently good. Because by definition, chol by definition, ultimately again comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu also. Just like the guf. The guf is inherently good because it's fueled by the neshama. He says, listen to what he writes. He says, Ki heim kelim nifloim lahamshich es ora elokus afilu l'naftule ha'asiyah chormis. Shaychusam el HaKodesh lo ba letashtesh es tsurasam uledadol es ichusam el linsoch bahem mashmaos gedula va'adira. So he says something amazing. He says that when Kodesh interacts with Chol, or I should say Chol interacts with Kodesh, the goal of Chol is not to pull down Kodesh, but the goal of Kodesh is to pull up Chol. Because at the end of the day, let's see. He says, Chaya Olam. Let's look at the next paragraph. He says, Chaya Olam, Hazeh Yicholim la'amlam liyatzer dvarim tovim u'mishuchlolim. Ach lo letzekes mashmos. Ube'edra, hakol na'aset tafel v'dav. Let's read two more lines. Lefichach. Ach geula ve'ora tavo l'chol chaye hachomer b'shar sheyugar kilevush miyufa el hadar kivod haneshama nishmas am Yisrael. So look at this line. So the Chalban says when geula comes and geula brings its light, that light brings life to all aspects of the material world. He goes on, he says, and everything becomes b'shashi yugar kilevush miyufala hadak kvad neshama. In the period of zechira, what ends up happening is the presence and the role of the neshama becomes known or becomes seen, not just in the neshama itself, but in the guf and in the chomer of life. B'levushim yikarim v'kishutim noim she'echinu avura baneha hashaveh me'artzos nechar. Ella, just go to the next paragraph. Shemabat kodesh zeh einena nimtza bechelek hanigla shaltara. So also before we get into this, so the Chalban says, just do one more paragraph. The Chalban says something so beautiful. So he says that understand what's happened here. Understand what's happened here, says the Chalban. That at the end of the day, we've highlighted this yesod that right now in our world, there's kodesh and there's chol. And they're two different states. And I will say, I want to point out, is our job to blur the line between kodesh and chol in this state of being? No. In fact, our avoda now is to make havdalah, to be able to distinguish what's kodesh, what's chol. Focus on the kodesh, embrace the kodesh, and sometimes try to avoid the chol. When possible, lift up the chol, but a lot of times in life, successful spiritual living requires the avoidance of chol. That's why we have the concept of Havdalah. That's why Morty said before, right? In the concept of Kiddushim Tiyu, right? How does Kiddusha ultimately express itself? Prushim, separating yourself from things, right? So in this world, in this state of being now, Havdalah is the key to success. Embrace the Kiddusha, lift up whatever chol you can, but try to push away. Or at least know, even though I shouldn't use the word push away, at least be cognizant and aware of what's Kodesh and what's Chol. What the Chalban is describing of Rabbosai is, in the period of Zechira, even the Chol becomes Kodesh. Unless you think that it's a Chiddush, it's not. Chol is always Kodesh. Chol is always Kodesh. It's just only in the period of Zechira that we're able to see it. Only in the future, in this world, we can't yet see it. But in the Messianic era, just like it'll be clear that the body is kadosh because the body is fueled by the neshama, the whole of this world will also be kadosh because it's all fueled and made by the same ein od milvado, by the same HaKadosh Baruch.
What's the purpose of that existence? Meaning in this world, meaning where we are right now, where there is a havdol, and it's our obligation to elevate. I mean, that's the whole struggle in life.
Right.
You take away that element, then what do we accomplish?
Oh, so remember, it's a good kasha. So remember again, this is a general struggle in the Messianic era. Like, what is the... Remember, this is not just on the Chalban.
Yeah.
In general, right? The Gemara says...
Yeah, depending on who's street you're on. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying, forget about supernatural stuff. Forget about loaves of bread coming out of the... Right? The Gemara said, we just had in Yevamos a couple of weeks ago, that the Gemara says, we're not Makabel Gerim. Bimos HaMashiach. We're not Makabel Gerim. Why? Because the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be so explicitly clear, you can't convert unless there's a challenge. So what does that tell you? That tells you that, like, God Himself is going to be so apparent and so tangible that even Bechira is altered. So that's a good kasha in general, ultimately, again, in Messianic era. What is the Tachlis Ha'adam Eimos Yashech? And by the way, that's why if you notice, right, whenever you see Chazal speaking about the Messianic era, there's always a theme of incredible urgency. It's almost as if you better get done what you have to get done now before Mashiach comes, because once he comes, I'm not going to have the opportunity to do tshuva. I'm not going to have the opportunity to, bless you, to right the wrongs.
Opportunity or necessity?
I think it might be the opportunity. It's kind of the same way that after you die, you can't do tshuva. Tshuva is only meaningful in Olam Hazeh. So to a certain degree, tshuva is only meaningful in the pre-Messianic era. But if everything is often, right, if everything is clear and everything is apparent, what's the great chap in tshuva? So, by the way, the Chalban is going to address this. But I just want to point out, it's not a shayla on the Chalban. It's a shayla Mashiach. You're asking a shayla on Mashiach.
Depends on how you view it. Yeah.
No, but it's a good,
the
it's a good kasha.
The Rambam is a very, practical sense of it. Where it's this world with clarity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Clarity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't mean you don't struggle. It just means you see Yad Hashem. You saw Yad Hashem in the Midbar, day in and day out. There's a clarity there. Yet they still struggle.
Maybe I always understood that the level of clarity is so explicit, but maybe I hear.
Is he saying that Chol is really Kodesh only the most Sechira? But now if Chol is really Kodesh, so then no one's ever doing anything bad. Even if they're doing Chol, they're really doing Kodesh.
No, it doesn't work that way, right? Well, no, it's the ability to see Kodesh in Chol. It's not just the pshat that everything that's Chol is Kodesh no matter what you do. It's the ability to see and perceive Kodesh even in that which is Chol. And that is a function of Zechira.
If that's what the Mashiach is, why would we not strive to do that now?
You can.
It's not sustainable. I mean,
how do you do it?
Become Lababa.
No, I'm saying, of course, 100% we should strive for all of these things. But Lamaisa, think about this for just a moment. It's hard enough. Just making Havdalah. Right? In other words, it's hard enough just being cognizant of what's Kodesh, what's Chol. How many of us have just like our life hashkafas in order to really know what's really Kodesh and what's really Chol? I don't have that in order. There are days that I'm not sure my head's on straight with these things. So if I can't even, and I think that's most of us, and by the way, that's okay. That's part of the human condition. So 1,000%, I don't have to wait for Mashiach to have this. But to be honest, not sure how to access this without Mashiach. Because I think what the Chalban is describing is almost like a little bit of a de facto state. In other words, this is what occurs when Mashiach comes. Lav dafka is something that we're doing. Is it a noble endeavor to try to make this happen here, or to try in my own life to make the Chol Kodesh? Absolutely. Are most of us successful in that? I think absolutely not. I think a successful life is where one knows what is Kodesh, one is Chol, and one does not allow Chol to derail his Kodesh, and one does not allow his Kodesh to derail his Chol. I think that's successful living in this world.
The Indian of Nazir, this is pre-Mashiach, that we have to watch out.
Yeah,
Being totally
and that's why I just mentioned. Correct, 100%. That's you have to be careful that your kedusha doesn't derail your chol. It goes both ways.
We have to deal with the chol.
100%. The guy who says, "I love davening," say, "You know what? I'm just staying in shul. I'm not going to work today. Not going to work today." So that's not a tzaddik. That's not a tzaddik. That's a person who's shirking his responsibilities. But he wants to daven. He wants a 4-hour Shemona Esrei. Fantastic. You know what? Maybe save it for Ma'ariv after you get home from work. I'm just saying. So but this is the great challenge. We live with this bifurcation, and I think what he's describing here is something so beautiful, but it's kind of hard to wrap our head around it. But let me just end off with this one last line. Then we'll sing a little bit. So look what he writes, and I will say the second last paragraph, page Ayin Gimel. He says, "Ella shemabat kadosh zeh." Einenu nimtza b'chelek hanigla shel Torah, ki hu eino ela madrich es ha'adam b'kiyum hamitzvos hamugdaros. Says the Chalban, this goes back to the beginning of the Sefer. The Chalban said, remember again, that Torah's hanistar, the more esoteric aspects of Torah, which is what we're learning, Chassidus, Zohar, Kabbalah. So the Chalban says, you will not learn how to make Chol Kodesh from the revealed part of Torah. And I both say, now what does that mean? What does that mean? So I say, look at what the Chalban is saying. They both say, what's the avodah of Torah? Think about this. What's the avodah of Taryag mitzvahs? What do we accomplish when we keep mitzvahs? Closer to Hashem. Beautiful. Good. Relationship. I'm sorry? Oh, great. Make sure we stay on the right path. So ultimately, again, relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, staying on the right path. The Chalban will also say, mitzvahs help me distinguish between Kodesh and Chol. How do I know what Kodesh is? And I will say, so many crazy things have been, right? So many things have been done throughout the generations in the name of holiness, in the name of God. Right? How do you know in life what real Kedusha is? What's the answer? How do I know what real Kedusha is? How do I know? Right? How do I know? Shalom Aleichem. Right? How do I know? If HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me to do it, it's Kaddish. And if HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells me not to do it, it's not Kaddish. That's it. If he tells me to do it, it's Kaddish. Tells me not to do it. Should I both say, isn't this incredible, says the Chalban? Torah's Hanigla. Revealed Torah. Chamisha Chumshen Torah. Torah Shabbat Peh, Mishnayis, Gemara, Rishonim, Achronim. They're dedicated to a very important pursuit. Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. That's what they're there for. To teach me what's Kodesh, what's Chol, keep them separate. He says, Dafka chilek hanistar hu sheba legalos es hakodesh ha'olyon ulaharos es shlitaso b'chol merchavei hachayim. We're going to stop with this for tonight. But the Chalban says that ultimately it's Torah's hanistar, esoteric Torah, Chassidus, Chalban, Zohar, Kabbalah, which teach us this loftier level that maybe we're not quite ready for in this world, but that we will be ready for when Mashiach comes. The level of not Hamavdu ben Kodesh l'chol, but the level ultimately again of finding the Kedusha even in the Chol. By the way, I'll point out to you one of the core tenets of Chassidus. Is the concept of nitzotzos. Nitzotzos means literally sparks or drops of Kedusha. And where can you find nitzotzos? Where can you find them? Everywhere in the world. From the holiest thing to the quote-unquote most mundane thing. The only distinction in Chassidus is how many klippas on top of the nitzotzos? How many shells, right? How many coverings, how many layers on top of the sparks? That's Torah's Hanistar. Torah's Hanistar is what opens our eyes to this new reality that, you know what? There's not Kodesh and Chol. There's only Kodesh. There's only Kodesh. There's Kodesh that you know is Kodesh, and there's Kodesh that I know it's Kodesh, but I just don't know how or why it's Kodesh yet. But I'm looking forward somehow, some way to discovering it. So Torah's Hanigla, Torah as we know it, helps us to live and to navigate in the world of Amavdil Ben Kodesh L'chol. And Torah's Hanistar opens our eyes to what will be a world that is Kula Kodesh. So we'll stop here for tonight. We'll pick up the Mir Hashem. We'll sing a little bit. Mikol Chaim. Shkoyach.
Yeah. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. The Chaim, the Chaim. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Shkoyach, l'chaim, 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 l'chaim. Marav, yeah, we're going to do Marav. We'll do maybe one more song. I know we just said good Shabbos, but
One more song.
keep going. Shkoyach, everyone.
Shkoyach. Yeah. Fine.